Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin. Thanks for tuning into our podcast, Secret War on Cash, where we take a look at some of the developments in our financial markets, our economy, things of the sort. I have my co-host, Chris Agelastos, with me. Good morning, Chris. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
You know, every time we do this podcast, I ask you how you're doing, and you say very well every time. So I do hope that's true, and you're not just saying it.
I'm a glasses half full guy. I try to be positive.
Well, if you have a Manhattan in your hand, I know that's true. But we're going to today get right. One of our recent podcasts, we've been kind of revisiting everything that's been happening with banks. Probably are in between first and second place in terms of not only interest, but also the coverage and the news that's out there that we've been talking about is either banks or the development of BRICS. And we've had several people tell us that, they really don't see or hear a lot about BRICS on their own in the news and the markets, et cetera. If you keep CNBC on, listening to what's going on in the markets, you don't find a lot of coverage there. But this is not even our update. The first article you'll see here on the screen, BRICS is giving us an update on their new currency. So we're not giving people an update. BRICS is giving an update. And, the interesting thing is in this article, we've covered the different aspects or dynamics associated with BRICS. And they are stating that they see that the US dollar and the reserves thereof are a risk to their growth, their countries and their economies' growth. Thus, that's why they're looking to make this shift or this change into, BRICS and ultimately this gold-backed currency that they're looking to come out with. It's interesting. They one of the things they cite is the $34 trillion in debt that the United States has, and they say they're, quote, worried. And I'm worried. I mean, $34 trillion in debt. We've all heard the horror stories about the conceivability, or the non-conceivability of that even ever being paid off, and like a giant balloon that it's not a matter of if it's going to burst, it's just when and how bad or what the fallout would be. But one of the things as well that they discuss in here is that, when this happens and BRICS really starts to take over, the US dollar is going to be, in the US economy for that matter, more than likely, is going to be what's going to be hit the worst in the course of this. So in looking at this article, Chris, tell me a little bit more about what you see with BRICS and what effect or impact that's going to have, as they start putting out this new currency on our currency and our economy.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting about this, and you're right, we don't really see it a lot in the news unless you know where to look, is that they're not trying to hide anything, right? I mean, they're talking about this new currency that they're wanting to put together, and the fact that they're buying gold to strengthen their own currencies, and that they want less reliance on the U.S. dollar. So they're coming right out and saying it. And maybe that's why it's not on the news so much. I mean, the news is for profit and for entertainment for the most part, at least in this country. And so maybe it's not exciting because they're not catching anybody doing something that they're trying to hide. It's right out in the open. But I think what people need to realize and just kind of look at everything behind this. Countries used to rely on the U.S. dollar for strength. They wanted to use the U.S. dollar for their reserves because it helped their countries and their economies. Now these countries, because of how poorly, in my opinion, the dollar has been managed over the years and how it's essentially been weaponized, these countries are wanting to go away from it. And so it's I hate to make the comparison, but sort of like a sinking ship, right? We're taking on water, and these other countries want to distance themselves. I mean, they're still using the dollar, but they're coming up with a new means to be able to distance themselves and protect their economies and strengthen their own countries. And I think it's one of those things that until it really fully develops, we're not going to know the power and all of the ramifications this is going to have for the U.S. dollar. So there are some unknowns out there, but I mean, make no mistake, it is going to be negative for the U.S. dollar and in turn for U.S. citizens, because we all use and rely on that dollar to pay for our goods and services, which, in a large percentage of cases come from overseas.
Sure. Well, and you're absolutely right. As you mentioned a moment ago, they're not this alliance, these BRICS nations. They're not hiding it. They're not trying to hide what they're doing. In fact, quite to the opposite. They're saying, here's why we're doing it, and here's how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's hard to not think, like 10, 15 years ago in the United States, if you had foreign countries who, let's be clear, these countries have taken a very vocal anti-U.S. Stance or approach to finances and economy. 10 or 15 years ago, just based, and this is my opinion, but it's just my opinion or experience, is that the U.S. government would say, you know what, you guys are going to do that to us, we're no longer dealing with you. But they can't. These are not third world countries. These are not countries that we have the luxury or option of just trying to flex our muscle and say, you better stop this or else, because they are forming an alliance that is certainly a very strong one, and financially, wields a very sharp sword, if you will. So definitely something that, and I guess that's the thing, and we've talked about this, where not only are they telling us why, not are they telling us how, but they're being very aggressive about it. And in fact, in the second article, you'll see where the BRICS ambassador, who I believe from South Africa, is saying the dollar denominated world ends soon. Not suggesting like, you know what, if things don't improve this way or that way, the way the dollar functions in the world today, that's going to end. Saying like it ends soon. And now what soon means, that obviously remains to be seen. But why they're doing this, you can't really fault them. In every instance, one of the things they cite, it's going to boost their currency. And, the sad reality is, the more that their currency and their country's economies thrive, there is a direct correlation to the dollar declining, because that's the problem when you have something like the dollar that has become such a relevant part of the world's economy. Once they have figured out a new direction or a new route to take, the replacement of that will have detrimental consequence to our U.S. dollar. And I mean, with that said, later on in the article, in fact, Chris, it says that the dollar-centric world is over, like over. So is there anything that can be done to stop this, in your opinion? And is it going to create this fallout like they're suggesting it will?
Yeah, it's too far gone to change, in my opinion. I mean, this is clearly reducing the power of the dollar already. They're actively convincing other nations to join them. So, I mean, they're out recruiting, and they're not having a hard time finding people to get on board with them. Because we have, politically used our dollar quite a bit. And whether right or wrong, or you agree with it or not, the fact of the matter is that is one of the tools that we've used to enforce sanctions on other countries. And so, you can't blame them, obviously, for trying to find a workaround. And that's what they've done here. So it is going to cost us all. How much and how soon, that's the question, we really don't know. But I think it shows why you should at least be aware of these things as they're happening, and do what you can to prepare and protect yourself, from the effects of a weaker dollar, investing in tangibles. Obviously, we work with gold and silver. Having some things like real estate, just some assets that aren't completely tied to the dollar. A good chunk of your money is probably always going to be, if you live here in the US, but it doesn't mean you have to be 100% reliant on it. and just ignorant to what's happening internationally. We are not necessarily everybody's friend. They do not like us and the power that our dollar yields. I think they used it to their benefit while it benefited them. And now that they have strength in numbers and they no longer need it, they're going to do what they feel is in the best interest of their alliance and their nations. And that's not going to be good for us. That's just the bottom line.
Sure. And, to that point, Chris, they're not to be faulted for wanting to make their own currency strong, their own economy strong.
Mm-hmm.
Who wouldn't want to do that? That's what we're talking about here. That's what the United States wants for our country. We want to have a strong currency. We want to have a strong economy. However, you pepper in there, several months ago in this podcast, we covered how Putin publicly stated again, like you said earlier, not trying to hide anything, not trying to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
He very publicly stated that the effort or motivation behind BRICS in part was to dethrone the US dollar. That term that's been kicked around now for a while is the de-dollarization. De-dollarization is just the code name they use for wanting to crush the US dollar, to annihilate the US dollar. And again, they have enough countries, they have enough resources where this is something that is looking to become an inevitable reality, which is why I think, the BRICS ambassador has been as vocal as they have. So thanks for sharing that, Chris. And we will definitely be covering this much more in the future. Please like us, subscribe to us, follow us on social media. If you haven't contacted our offices, please do that as well. Stay tuned in the future for more episodes like this, where we'll get into this ever so quickly changing world and financial environment that we all live in. Until then, have a great rest of your day.